Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Are you ready for a clash of titans? It's Alireza Firouzja versus Hikaru Nakamura, the two most exciting online players in the world, in my opinion. Now, they're playing in the losers bracket. I mean, it always sounds really harsh calling them losers, right? But they got knocked out of the Division 1 winners in the Chess Kid Cup, so they're into the losers, trying to hop back in. And this is what we've got on the way.
Relax, relax.
So that is the final move of this tense and exciting game. They drew the first game, it's the second one, only 2 games in the losers bracket, so the winner of this one, you know, would go through, right? And it's a decisive game. So let's see what happened. E4 from Alireza, E5 from Hikaru, Knight F3, Knight C6, and Bishop C4, the Italian game. So Knight F6 played, we get D3, Bishop C5, all standard stuff, and C3 from Alireza, preparing a future pawn break. Pawn? Did I just say prawn? Pawn break. Now we get pawn D6. And now here you can play with the move order, right? So castles is the main one, but we always see this subtle stuff going on. Sorry, I'm still laughing at saying prawn. So knight B to D2 is played instead. I actually had a prawn stir fry earlier as well. A6 is now played, not A5, which you often see, and now bishop B3 drops back, and we see castles now from Hikaru. So pawn H3, all standard stuff so far. The bishop now comes to E6, and this is a standard idea. Yes, you can offer these double pawns, but in compensation, you open the F-file and you support these squares. So bishop C2 from Alireza maybe looks a bit passive, but one day white hopes to achieve D4. But now, Hikaru, he's first to the punch in the centre, so he goes D5. Now you can take on D5, but Alireza goes for knight G5, and it kind of highlights why you so often see black going moves like H6 before pushing in the centre. You know, it can stop a knight hopping there or a bishop. Anyway, the bishop attacked, so it drops all the way home, and now we see takes here, and the queen recaptures, which is a natural recapture. You know, the knight can't come to C3 here, there's a pawn there, not a pawn, and so it's okay, it sits there well, influences this square, and Alireza now hops this one into the centre of the board. And we see one of the ideas of hopping this knight here, because after captures now, he can retake with this one, the bishop is hit, Hikaru retreats it, and now queen h5 from Alireza. He still doesn't want a castle. He wants to go for the king. Really exciting stuff. Now, Hikaru, he wants to set up pawn to f5. But if you do it straight away, you blunder your queen. Always watch out pushing the f-pawn, right? So instead, we see bishop e6 coming onto that key diagonal. Now castles and pawn f5 played. So it drives the knight away from the central square. Now the knight does pressure the king here, but now we see the bishop capture. This one takes back, and we see the rook centralised, rook fe1 and queen d7. So Hikaru, he's given up his bishops, but in compensation, he's got this nice centre here as we can see, and so long as this one kind of remains a bit shut out of the game, well, black's doing fine. So that's the strategic battle now. Now a4 is played by Alireza, standard kind of looking move, gaining some space, and Hikaru just goes a5, but he plays it a bit casually if you like. I mean, he does take his time on that move, but what he should do here, when I say casually, is he had a better way to play rather than responding to his opponent's kind of play. He could have gone pawn to h6, and the idea is you drive the bishop back. Now, if you go to c1, you're kind of boxing in the rook, which is a bit annoying. So when you go to d2, then it looks a bit better to keep the rooks connected, but you run into e4. And the problem is the queen's on the unprotected bishop, you can use that pin. So therefore d4 is the main way to respond, but now bishop d5 can centralise and f4 is coming. So really nice initiative for Hikaru. And if you try and arrange b3, c4, well, black can always go b5. So this was the top way for Hikaru to play. But okay, he misses pawn to h6. He goes a5. Now we get rook a d1 and bishop f7. Kicks the queen out of there. It drops to h4, and now again this is really an interesting moment from Hikaru. So he could go pawn h6 and then potentially follow with g5, but then the queen would be able to capture the h6 pawn. So he goes rook e6, preparing to double, but it's also a multi-purpose move, supporting this square, preparing h6 and g5 in some lines. So Alireza drops back, anticipating this stuff. That's what the Super GMs do so well. He knows that bishop's on the wrong square. We get this rook double, and now this one does the same. Now that pawn to h6 move. Pawn f3 from Alireza. So if g5, he potentially wanted to drop back here. I mean, there are other squares for the queen, but it gives some room. But Hikaru instead goes for a different plan. So queen d6 supports the e-pawn and therefore prepares to maneuver this knight, as we'll see. So the rook's double, the knight's maneuver, you know, this is the point of the queen defending. The pawn's still covered twice. And now this is an absolute star move from Alireza. I love this move. So the computer's top move is d4, and it really gets quite tactical actually. It's a bit of a temporary pawn sack, but okay, I won't dive into that one. You can go for a kind of safer move here of queen f2, just nudging back, anticipating knight g6. But what Alireza does, look at the clock times, he takes 2 minutes here, that's a long time when you're getting low, and goes pawn to f4. Now why is this so good? Well, it's because you have to see this line. So knight g6 hits the queen, hits the pawn. Now if you drop the queen back, that's terrible. The knight's crashing through, you're picking up the bishop pair, you may be even picking up a pawn in that line. You know, I didn't go deep. Swings it a pawn and a half in black's favour. So what Alireza does is take on e5, but you have to calculate this line. What if black takes the queen? Well, then you take this queen, and the big thing you have to see as white is, well, you're just giving an entire rook. You know, there was a pin on the e-file, so after captures, rook recaptures, you're a whole rook down, but this one's the key. Pawn d7, and you cannot stop that pawn from going through unless you drop back with the rook. And after captures, bishop recaptures, well, now white's for choice, even material, but you've got the bishop pair, open board, and actually because of the pressure here and here, well, you're actually going to win a pawn. Now, just briefly coming back, you don't actually have to stop this pawn. There's a cool computer line where you check, the king runs, you pick up a bishop, you allow a queen, and then, okay, it goes on like this, and this, and this, and this, and this. Crazy computer stuff, right? But where you get these pieces for the queen. Anyway, just lots of stuff for Alireza to calculate. But Hikaru, to his credit, doesn't go down that line. It's not best. He goes for takes on e5. You also could have taken with the knight. But now queen f2 comes, and we see this liquidation on the e-file, and the queen recaptures. Now, what Alireza really wants to do is liberate this bishop, you know, pressure this pawn, this whole diagonal. So c5 from Hikaru is a good move, fighting against d4. Queen f2 renews that pawn push, also threatens here. And now here Hikaru plays such a natural move, but it allows d4 in good circumstances in just a moment. What he should do is queen d5 or queen e6. You cover this pawn, but also after bishop e3, pressuring here, you get this amazing counterplay with queen a2. You pressure on this one here, and if bishop d1 to let the queen cover, which is the top move, well, then there's this b6, and if d4, there's f4. Now, it's proper ninja computery stuff, right? But it's just really cool how the queen, you know, generates that counterplay. The knight comes into its own with this pawn, and it holds a kind of balance. But okay, Hikaru goes bishop e6 to cover this pawn. Very natural, but now after bishop e3, pressuring here, you know, the queen's not there, it can't invade and counterplay, so b6 but d4. The board is getting ripped open for these bishops. So we see captures on d4. Sorry, dying over here, too much excitement. Now we see bishop takes back. The knight jumps into f4. Oh, I should really say for a moment here, the knight jumps into f4. So you can't actually really cover this pawn. It's also hard to cover this one. So Hikaru does the best thing here, goes for active counterplay. So this pawn drops, but now bishop d5. pressures the g2 pawn, and so Alireza goes g3 and blunders his queen. No, he didn't do that. How many of us would do that one? No, so the pawn's attacked and there isn't really a good way to defend it. So instead, we see bishop c5, kicking the queen and trying to overload it. You know, it has to stay with the knight. So it drops back to b8, also pressures the b2 pawn, covers the back rank, good move. And now the bishop takes on f5 and this bishop crashes through on g2. So there is a threat. Oh no, there's not a threat, sorry, to take with check and win the queen. The bishop's covering. Okay, but there's some nasty stuff around the king. You know, if you try and step away right now, well, you're walking into discoveries, but also this bishop can drop back and you're threatening queen b7. You know, there's some nasty stuff which could be happening down this diagonal. But what we see from Alireza is queen to e3. And it's a great move because it comes onto this e-file and threatens some nasty stuff. So if you try and drop back now and set up this battery, well, bishop a7 can encourage it, and you can't do this or you literally get mated. So Alireza is just in control of the tactics here. So what does Hikaru do? Well, bishop c6. He attacks this pawn, but also covers the e8 square. And now Alireza, he could technically go b3 to cover this pawn. The queen can't take, it's overloaded, protecting the knight. But even in that line, later on, the computer wants to push pawn b4 anyway. So we see Alireza just do it immediately. And after captures, pawn recaptures, this one drops. Material is even and restored. But the problem is this open board, the bishops, the outside passer, the more exposed king, you could argue with the bishops, and so it's very difficult for Hikaru to play. Now there's a threat to go bishop d4 and skewer these pieces, so Hikaru finds the absolute best defense of queen to d6. Look at the clock time, so low on the clock. Now what's the idea? Well, after you skewer, you're just in time to check. The king goes, and now here Hikaru makes a big blunder, but it is such a difficult position to play. The top move here was queen d5, and the idea is if you take this knight with the bishop, well, now we can take this one on f5. You know, you've opened up that attack, and if instead you take with the queen, well, then there's bishop c6. You're threatening mate, and if you cover it with the queen in any way, well, you're going to drop a piece. If you go bishop e4, well, this is just liquidating towards a drawn position. And coming back here, if you don't block in any way like that, you try and run the king, well, now there's this awesome line of check. The king staggers up and g5 check. Now bear that in mind for future. Here you're losing the queen, so you're just dead lost. So that's why queen d5 was the best move, but so hard to spot. Hikaru plays the very natural bishop to c6, setting up the battery, but Alireza can now take that knight with the bishop, not the queen, and this one doesn't drop off the board in this line. So we get check, the king staggers up, another check, king goes, g5, but it's not the queen getting fought with the king, it's the bishop, and so you can just capture there. The pawn takes back and you take with check. Now you could swap these ones off. Hikaru goes for this. We see the queens exchanged in this manner, and what's the problem here? Well, it's a dead lost endgame. You can't stay with both of the passed pawns. So let's just show you a few moves here, how the game progressed, and you're soon going to see the reaction from the commentators when Hikaru just plays this crazy move. So here, after king c5, he mouse slips.
Relax, relax.
Obviously, Alireza chops it off. We see resignation. But just to show you how you win this one, if Hikaru had gone bishop e8, which was his intention quite clearly, well, then the idea is that you push this pawn through, but without allowing the bishop to capture. So if you go b5 straight away, then captures, and this king just sits in the corner. It can never be evacuated because it's on a dark square and you don't have a dark squared bishop. And if you get the king too close, you'll just stalemate. So coming back here, the trick is, sorry, not bishop d7, bishop e8. The trick is that you progress the pawn but swap the bishops at the right moment if you can. So you bring the bishop like this. You say, are you going to take or move? You can't take, the pawn's going to go through. So you move and then you make progress. This is how the line goes. So the bishop now comes again, prepares to chop the pawn if you push it, but what you do now is bring in the king, stop the bishop from controlling the square. So by nudging back here, you control a6. Now here comes the king, and here the bishop's got a decision to make. Do you come here and then get boxed in? You've got to go, the pawn's going to go through. Or do you stay on this diagonal, but then simply bishop c6, you cut the communication, again the pawn's going. So that's how the game could have ended. And so Alireza is now bouncing back up. Commiserations to Hikaru. I hope you enjoyed. See another epic game. Do check out the video on screen, and I hope to see you soon.